I never believed in curses. Not until I came to Tennessee. The land here feels heavy, like the soil itself remembers. People warn you about the Bell Witch. They say she never left. And maybe I should have listened, because I saw her. It started when I drove past Adams, a small town most people forget. The roads were narrow, choked with trees, and the silence, it wasn't normal silence. It was the kind that presses against your ears, like the world itself wants you to stop. I pulled over near the old Bell farm. Locals say that land is cursed, and I swear, the air smelled like rot. The house was long gone, but the ground felt alive, as if something waited beneath it. I shouldn't have gone closer, but curiosity, it always wins. I walked to where the cabin once stood, and the air turned ice cold. No birds, no insects, just silence. Then, something whispered my name, but no one was there. That was the first night I met her, and that was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice. Not loud, not clear, just enough to keep me awake. By morning, I thought maybe it was my imagination, but the land didn't agree. The locals don't like talking about the Bell Witch. At the gas station, I asked the old man behind the counter. He froze, didn't answer, just stared at me like I'd said something forbidden. Finally, he whispered, "Don't go near the hollow." And then he refused to say another word. But I had to, because when you hear your name whispered in the dark, you don't walk away, you chase it. The Bell Witch cave isn't far from the old farm. Locals say her spirit lives inside. The entrance yawns open like a mouth, and stepping inside feels like walking into a grave. The deeper I went, the more the air changed. It was damp, heavy, and then something touched my arm. I spun around. No one there, just darkness. But the whisper returned, closer, clearer. It said, "You shouldn't be here." I ran out of the cave, out into the daylight, but the whisper followed, and I realized something. It wasn't just the land that was cursed. It was me now. That was the second night, and the Bell Witch wasn't done with me yet.
That night, I left the cave behind, but the voice followed me. Every step back to the motel felt wrong, like someone was walking behind me. I didn't turn around because I already knew no one would be there. I barely slept. The mattress felt like stone, Every creak of the room made me jump, and around 3 a.m., I heard scratching at the window. Not loud, just enough to freeze my blood. When I finally got the courage to look, there were eyes. 2 pale eyes staring from the dark field. I told myself it was an animal, but animals don't blink in rhythm, and animals don't whisper your name. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go back to the source, back to the Bell farm. The field stretched wide and empty, but the air was thick with silence. And then I saw it, a shape far out in the tall grass. Small at first, but growing clearer the longer I stared. A woman, standing perfectly still, watching me. I shouted, but she didn't move. I stepped closer, and she disappeared, like smoke in the wind. But when I turned to leave, the whisper came again, this time inside my ear. Run. I didn't wait. I ran through the field back to my car. And as I drove off, I looked in the rearview mirror. She was there, in the back seat. I swerved off the road, heart racing. When I turned around, the seat was empty. But I knew I wasn't alone anymore. That was the 3rd night, and I realized something terrifying. She wasn't haunting the land. She was haunting me. The motel felt safe at first. 4 walls, a locked door, a flimsy curtain to shut out the night. But safety is a lie, especially here. I turned on the TV to drown out the silence, but in the static, I heard something. A woman's voice, saying my name, over and over. I unplugged the TV, but the voice didn't stop. Now it came from the bathroom, slow, faint, whispering. I grabbed the knob and turned. The bathroom was dark, mirror cracked, sink dripping. And in the mirror, I saw her, a pale woman behind me. But when I spun around, nothing. I didn't sleep. Every shadow looked alive. Every sound whispered her presence. And at 3:15 a.m., the lights flickered. And then she laughed. Not far away, not in the room, but right next to my ear. By morning, I was broken, exhausted, and terrified. But I couldn't leave, because now I needed answers. That was the 4th night, and it was only getting worse.
Adams, Tennessee, a town that pretends to forget, but everyone remembers. They just don't talk. I found the library, dust everywhere, old newspapers, yellow with time. And in the archives, I saw her name, Kate Batts, the woman they called the Bell Witch. She cursed John Bell, the farmer, his family tormented, his children beaten by invisible hands, his wife mocked in the night, and John himself slowly poisoned. They say the witch killed him and laughed at his grave. But here's what chilled me most. An entry written in shaky ink. The witch said she would return, not for the land, but for anyone who dares to call her name. And I had spoken it out loud on the farm. Her name. Suddenly I felt watched. The library was empty, but I wasn't alone. Between the shelves, movement, a shadow darting, and then a whisper, low and sharp. Leave. I ran from the library, and outside on the quiet street, every window had eyes, staring down at me, watching. That was the 5th night, and the town itself was part of the curse. I told myself I'd leave, drive away, forget it all. But something pulled me back to the cave, to her. The entrance waited like a wound in the earth, and stepping inside again felt like surrender. This time, I brought a flashlight, but the beam shook in my hand because the walls breathed. I swear to you, the stone walls breathed. Deeper and deeper I went until I heard water, but the ground was dry. Then, a voice. Not a whisper, but chant. Dozens of voices layered together, calling my name. My light flickered, and in that flicker, I saw her, the pale woman, closer now, her eyes empty, her mouth open too wide. And when the light went out completely, she laughed. I ran, tripping over rocks, crawling toward the exit, and just before I escaped the cave, something grabbed my ankle, cold, strong, and a voice whispered, "You belong to me now." I tore free, collapsed outside in the daylight. But the mark remained, a black bruise burning on my skin. That was the 6th night, and I knew I would never escape.
The motel door clicked open on its own. I was awake, every sense raw. I watched the door as if it could bite. The deadbolt slid back slow, deliberate. A cold draft crawled into the room like a snake. I told myself to get up. My legs didn't move. The hallway beyond was a pool of black, and from that black, soft thumps. Someone or something was pacing. Then a knock, slow as a funeral drum. Not at my door, but the room next to mine. The knock answered itself, as if an invisible hand returned the sound. The doorknob trembled, and as I watched, the shadow at the threshold leaned in. A face, half-formed, pressed to the space between rooms. It smiled without moving its mouth. I slumped against the headboard and felt watched from every angle. The temperature dropped so fast, my breath fogged the air. Then, the picture on the wall swung with no wind. A child's laugh echoed in the corridor, bright and wrong. The door to my room closed quietly, as if nothing had ever opened. I held the covers tight and prayed for dawn. Dawn felt like a lie. At night, the human mind invents ghosts, they say. But some voices are not inventions. I heard a child call my name under the sheets. Come play. It sounded like a memory I never had. The voice came from the vent, from the closet, from the pillow. I followed it down the hall. The carpet swallowed my steps. The corridor lights buzzed and stuttered above me. The voice giggled, full of mischief and malice. It led me to the washing room where the motel kept their linen. A single sock lay by the dryer, old and gray. The voice whispered, soft as moth wings, behind the sock. I reached out like a fool and picked it up. Underneath, a scrap of paper, child's handwriting. She wants to play. The fluorescent light went out then, and the darkness tasted like iron. Something breathed on my neck, close, wet. When I turned, the washing room was empty, but the paper burned between my fingers like a hot coal. I dropped it into the wash and watched the water smoke. A child's laughter threaded through the pipes, distant as thunder. I ran back to my room and locked the door. The lock rattled as if something were testing its strength. And beneath the door, the same small handprint on the carpet I'd just walked over. It was not mine. I met a woman in the diner who looked like she'd seen a century. Her fingers trembled around the handle. She told me about the bell, about the noise that rings when she's near, a sound like old iron on old teeth. Once the bell tolls for you, she whispered, it will choose. I asked her what it wanted. She smiled a sad, crooked smile. Not land, not vengeance, company. She slid a small folded charm across the table, worn oak, string gone brittle. Keep this near, she said. It won't stop her entirely, but it will delay the hunger. You can buy time, she said, time enough to understand why she chooses. I laughed then suddenly, bitter and shaky. What understanding could possibly matter when something ate sleep? She pressed the charm's splintered edge into my palm, and the moment her fingers left mine, the bell rang 3 times in my head. Not outside, inside my skull. The diner fell away into silence like a stage curtain dropping. She stood, stumbled, and left without a goodbye. On the table where she sat, her cup was empty, but still warm. I left with the charm in my pocket and a warning in my bones.
Mirrors lie, but they sometimes tell truths you cannot bear. I caught sight of myself and something moved wrong. My reflection blinked a beat after I did. I reached up and the glass reached back. It wasn't a reflection anymore. It was a window. Inside the glass, an image of the motel room days from now, charred. Smoke curling where the bed had been, and on the bed, my body, curled and still. My reflection smiled as if I were already dead. I smashed the mirror with the heel of my hand. Shards bit my palm and the pain was sharp and clean. But the image remained, burning behind the splinters. When I cleaned the blood, the motel room was whole again. Yet at night, I kept seeing the future in every pane of glass. Windows showed me my empty chair and unpaid bills. Mirrors showed me my funeral arrangements and handwriting I'd never seen. You learn to avoid your reflection when the future is a trap. But some things force your eyes open, like the creak of a rocking chair. And out of the corner of my eye, the glass showed her standing in my doorway, patient as dawn. She lifts a hand in the mirror, and it appears behind me in the room. I found them by accident, letters tucked under a loose plank. They were yellow, brittle, addressed to no one and everyone. Ink smeared by tears that still felt recent. One letter read like a confession. We mocked her. We bound her in jokes and left her to the dark. Another was a child's plea. Please stop the scratching. Please stop the dreams. The last was a scrawl, wild, hurried. She will not be satisfied until she has named every last one of us. I tucked them into my jacket and felt the air thicken. That night, the floor under me felt like ribs. Something moved beneath, slow, searching. I remembered the story about how the bells had argued with neighbors until the neighbors cursed them. Sometimes curses are just words. Sometimes words are teeth. I pressed my ear to the floor and heard soft sobbing. It sounded like a choir of regrets. Then a whisper that was in no tongue. Count us. I slept with the letters under my pillow. When I woke, they had been rearranged into a list of names, some crossed out in a shaky hand. One name was mine. I thought escaping would be as simple as leaving. I drove down the 2-lane like a man fleeing a verdict. The road should have led me north, but mile markers slipped. The GPS stuttered and then showed me a looped highway that didn't exist on any map. Headlights behind me grew closer even as the road emptied. When I glanced in the rear view, a face hovered where no driver sat, pale and still, watching. My phone died. The sky folded into night, even though it should have been noon. Roadside signs read my name in block letters like a threat. You came here, they said. I turned onto a gravel road and found myself back at the Bell Farm, as if the land had swallowed the miles whole. The car stalled on the old driveway and would not start again. Out of the trees, the witch came, walking the path between the rows, as if everyone had always known she belonged there. She raised one hand, and somewhere far off, church bells began to ring a slow, sad cadence. The sound vibrated in my ribs and spelled out a sentence I could not bear to hear. You cannot leave until the naming is done. The motel smelled different tonight, not of smoke, not of mold, but of copper, the thick, metallic scent of blood. I flicked on the light and froze. The walls dripped red, thick streams running downward. At first I thought it was paint, but the smell told me the truth. It was blood, real blood. I backed toward the door, but it slammed shut on its own, and the blood began to move, crawling, stretching upward, forming words. On the wall above the bed, stay, and then beneath it, you are already dead. I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the room. The blood didn't stop. It formed faces, twisted, screaming faces staring back at me. And in the largest face, I saw her, the witch, her eyes empty, her mouth curved in a smile. And then she spoke. The walls will remember your blood too. I clawed the door open, ran into the night, but even outside the smell followed me. That copper sting of blood, as if it had soaked into my skin. That was the 13th night, and I realized she wasn't just haunting me anymore. She was marking me.
I checked out of the motel before sunrise. I didn't even ask for a refund. Money didn't matter anymore. Not when something wanted my life. The road was empty. Mist rolled over the Tennessee fields, and my rearview mirror kept moving. No cars behind me, but the glass rippled like someone's breath fogged it.
I pulled over, wiped the mirror, and that's when I saw it. A handprint pressed against the inside of the windshield. Not mine. Too large, too dark. The print wasn't just wet, it was stained red. And then it shifted, slowly, dragging down the glass, like a dead man's hand sliding toward me. I threw the car in the gear, drove faster than I ever had in my life. But the print never faded. It just smeared, following me like it was alive. Hours later, I stopped again, middle of nowhere. And when I looked back at the windshield, the print was gone. Relief washed over me until I saw the passenger seat. A fresh handprint right beside me. That was the 14th night, and I finally understood. She wasn't outside anymore. She was inside the car. The road ended at water, a river I'd never seen before. Dark, wide, silent. It wasn't on any map. And yet, my car had carried me here, as if she was steering instead of me. I stepped out. The ground was soft, sinking under my shoes. The smell of rot clung to the air. Dead fish, wet soil, and something worse. Something human. The river moved strangely, not with waves, but with shapes. Hands. Dozens of pale hands pushing upward, reaching for air, or maybe for me. I froze until one hand broke the surface. Long, thin, blackened by rot. It gripped the mud at my feet, pulled itself closer, and I saw the arm it belonged to. A corpse, dragging itself from the river. Then another, and another. Men, women, children, all waterlogged, all broken. Their mouths open, but no sound came out. Only empty gasps. And then they all turned. Every dead face turned towards me. And in one single breathless voice, they whispered, "She waits beneath." The water swelled, a shadow rising from the depths, taller than any human, its face hidden. But I knew who it was. The witch. Her hand stretched wide, and the dead sank back into the river. All except one. A child's body floating face up. Her eyes opened, and in a voice that wasn't hers, she said, "Cross the river or drown where you stand." That was the 15th night, and I realized the Bell Witch didn't just haunt the land. She ruled what lay beneath it, too. The river stretched forever, black water swallowing the horizon. No boats, no ferries, no way across, except one. I saw it in the mist. A bridge, not made of wood, not made of stone, but of bones. Skulls stacked side by side, ribs forming the rails, femurs laid end to end like planks. And every step I took, the bones groaned. Halfway across, I froze because the skulls were watching me, empty eye sockets shifting. And then they began to whisper. Turn back. The bridge shuddered. One rib cracked beneath my hand. I nearly slipped. The black water below churned, and in it, dozens of faces surfaced. The same corpses I'd seen before, their arms reaching upward, begging me to fall. I forced myself forward, one step, then another. But the whispers grew louder, not warning me anymore, taunting. She wants your bones next. At the far side, I finally saw the witch, standing at the end of the bridge, her face hidden in shadow, her hand outstretched, not to help me, but to welcome me. I was the 16th night, and I realized every path she showed me only pulled me deeper into her world.
I stumbled through the trees. The river behind me roared like a beast, though the water never moved. Through the mist, I saw it, a church. Its steeple pierced the sky, but every window was dark. The doors sagged on rusted hinges. I thought it might be a refuge, a place where I could hide. I stepped inside. The air was thick, cold, damp. Pews lined the floor, broken, rotting, and the altar was empty. I thought I was alone until I heard the singing, low, hollow, echoing through the walls. No choir, no organ, just the sound of voices praying in reverse. I moved closer. The walls were covered in carvings, names etched deep into the wood, some fresh, some ancient. One name stood out, mine. Then I saw her, the witch, sitting on the altar, eyes like hollow pits, her mouth moving in a silent chant. The floorboards creaked under me. I tried to step back, but the doors slammed shut. The windows blackened as if the night had entered. From the pulpit, a shadow rose, tall, black, and twisting. It reached toward me. The air filled with whispers. You came, you stayed, now you belong. I ran toward the altar. She moved faster. Each step she closed the distance without effort. I tripped over the pew, and when I looked up, she was inches from my face, smiling. The Bell Witch never forgets. That was the 17th night, and I realized there is no sanctuary. Every building, every field, every river bend belongs to her. I ran from the hollow church. The trees twisted around me like gnarled fingers. And then I saw it, a cemetery. The gates hung on broken hinges. Tombstones leaned at impossible angles. The grass grew thick and black. I stepped inside. The earth smelled of wet decay. And then I heard it, a sigh. Not the wind, not a living thing. The cemetery itself was breathing. The soil rose and fell like lungs. The graves shifted beneath my feet. From a fresh grave, a hand shot out, pale, wet, trembling, clawing at the dirt. Another followed, and another. The dead were rising, not slowly, not randomly, but in perfect rhythm, like they knew what I had done. And then I saw her, the Bell Witch, standing among the tombs, her shadow stretched across the graves, her eyes locked on mine. The hands reached for me. I stumbled backward, tripping over roots and stones. She moved faster and whispered, "Join them or leave with the curse." I ran. Through the gates, through the trees, the dead followed, crawling faster than anything living could. I didn't stop until I reached the road. That was the 18th night, and I realized the Bell Witch doesn't need to walk. The land itself carries her will. The road ended in a small hollow. Trees leaned in like conspirators, and there in the center stood a cabin. Its windows were dark, yet I felt eyes inside. The door creaked open on its own as I approached. Inside, the air was thick, every surface slick, alive. The walls seemed to pulse. The floorboards flexed under my weight. I could hear whispers everywhere, from the ceiling, from under the floor, from the very walls. You should not have come. The fireplace roared to life, though it had no fuel. Shadows danced, and among them she appeared, the Bell Witch, her eyes empty, her smile sharp. I tried to move, but the floor gripped my feet. Every step forward felt like walking through thick water. She circled me, whispering, "Every step you take belongs to me." I reached for the door. It wasn't there, just a wall where it had been. I screamed, but the cabin absorbed it. The furniture shifted, forming shapes. Tables became faces. Chairs grew limbs. The walls leaned toward me. I fell to my knees, and in a single breath, she whispered, "You cannot leave, not yet." That was the 19th night, and I realized the Bell Witch does not hunt you. She owns the spaces between life and death.
The stairs groaned beneath me. Each step closer to the attic felt heavier. I pushed the trap door open. The air smelled of dust and rot. Voices, soft, pleading, angry. They came from every corner of the attic, from the floorboards, from the walls. "Help us! We're trapped!" The voices layered over each other, building a storm of sound. Boxes moved on their own. Old clothes leapt like snakes. And the mirror in the corner, it reflected not me, but the faces of the dead. And then she appeared, the Bell Witch,
standing behind the mirror, her fingers pressed against the glass. They speak only because I allow it. I tried to look away, but the attic had no corners. The walls bent toward me. The floor rose to meet me. The voices screamed, "Join us! Name us!" She leaned closer. Her breath was cold enough to burn. "You are the next in line," she whispered. And for a moment, I believed her. The attic spun, the voices collided, and the dead reached for me. I fell back through the trap door, landing in the hollow cabin floor. The voices faded, replaced by her laughter. That was the 20th night, and I realized the Bell Witch does not need her hands to claim you. Her power is the terror she plants inside you. I found it in a corner of the cabin, a mirror, tall and cracked, leaning against the wall. But it didn't reflect me. It reflected the cabin, empty, silent, and yet alive. I stepped closer, and I saw her, the Bell Witch, not behind me, not in the room, but inside the mirror. Her eyes locked with mine, empty, endless pits, her smile wide, cruel, and I realized she was inside me too.
The mirror pulsed. Reality stretched, twisted. Walls leaned, ceiling dropped. I fell backward, and still I watched her. Voices whispered from the glass. "See yourself. See your fear. See who you are when I take you." My reflection moved differently. Its lips formed words I did not speak. Its eyes screamed, "You belong to me." I lunged to smash the mirror, but my hands passed through. It was not glass. It was a portal. I stumbled back. The cabin warped. The mirror followed, and she stepped closer from the reflection into my world. That was the 21st night, and I realized mirrors do not lie. They show the truth the living fear most. The forest waited. Trees tall as towers, their branches twisting like claws. Every leaf whispered, not with wind, not with birds, but with voices. "Turn back, you can't leave." I walked slowly, each step heavier than the last. Branches scraped my arms, leaving shallow cuts. Shadows moved with intent. They weren't animals. They weren't human. And through them, I saw her, the Bell Witch. She moved silently, a shadow among shadows, her eyes fixed on mine. Her smile promised pain. I tried to run, but the trees shifted, paths closed behind me. The whispers grew louder, names of the dead spoken in my ear, the Bell family, the neighbors, all those she had claimed. I stumbled into a clearing. A small pond reflected the moonlight, and in its surface, her face appeared. "Closer," she hissed, and the water rippled. Shadows rose from its depths, hands reaching, faces screaming. I backed away. Branches grabbed at me, roots curled around my ankles. She stepped closer, smiling, and the forest fell silent, except for one sound, my own heartbeat. That was the 22nd night, and I realized the Bell Witch does not follow roads. She moves with the land, with the trees, with the wind.
The farmhouse loomed ahead,
its windows dark like hollow eyes, the front door cracked open, swinging in the wind. I stepped inside. The air smelled of old wood and decay. Shadows moved across the walls, not cast by light, but alive. Each room was the same, empty, silent, until I heard it. Soft scratching, slow, deliberate, coming from the walls. I followed the sound. It led me to the kitchen. A knife on the table moved, sliding across the wood on its own. And then the whisper, "You cannot hide." I turned. The Bell Witch stood in the doorway, her eyes dark, her mouth a cruel line. I ran down the hall. Every shadow reached for me. Every floorboard groaned. She laughed, and the sound of her laughter echoed from the walls. In the bedroom, I saw them. Figures pressed against the walls, twisting, writhing, waiting. "Your turn," she whispered, and the walls seemed to bend toward me. The shadows pressed. I felt them brush my skin, cold, wet, hungry. I stumbled outside. The farmhouse behind me pulsed like a living thing. And I realized the Bell Witch does not just haunt houses. She animates them, makes every corner, every shadow a weapon. That was the 23rd night, and I realized there is no safe place. The night was thick. Mist rolled across the fields like living silk. Ahead, I saw the river again, but tonight it wasn't black. It was filled with faces, faces of the dead, pale, twisted, silent. Some pressed to the surface, others submerged. And each face knew my name, Alamgir. I stepped closer. The water rippled unnaturally. Each ripple a mouth forming words. "Join us. She waits beneath." I wanted to run, but my feet sank into the mud. Cold fingers brushed my ankles, dragging, pulling. And then I saw her, the Bell Witch, standing on the riverbank, smiling. The faces turned toward her. They bowed. They whispered. "Take him," she said. The river surged. Hands rose, grasping, clawing, faces screaming in silence. I screamed, and in that instant, she was beside me. Her hand touched my shoulder. Cold, sharp, endless. "You cannot escape the river, or me." I stumbled backward. The river calmed slightly, as if it were waiting for me to step in. The mist thickened, and I realized this river was not water. It was the boundary between the living and the dead. That was the 24th night, and I realized the Bell Witch does not only haunt land, she controls the dead. And now she wanted me too.
I ran from the river. The mist hung low, clinging to my legs. The fields stretched before me, empty, silent, but I could feel them. Shadows, thick, black, writhing shadows, not cast by trees or moonlight, but alive. Each step I took, they followed, creeping closer, whispering my name. Alamgir, Join us. The wind picked up, carrying screams, not from the living, but from those she had claimed. And the shadows echoed them, twisting into faces, twisting into hands that reached for me. I stumbled, fell onto the cold grass, and saw her. The Bell Witch, standing at the edge of the field, her eyes locked on mine, her smile cruel, patient, eternal. I tried to crawl. The shadows lunged, fingers brushing my skin, cold, wet, sharp. The fields remember, she whispered, and now you will too. The shadows shrieked, forms twisting, writhing, screaming. I forced myself up, ran blindly through the mist. Every step the shadows closed in. Every step her laughter followed. That was the 25th night, and I realized the Bell Witch does not need hands to touch you. She commands the land, the air, and the shadows. The moon hung low. Its pale light barely touched the hollow ahead. The cemetery waited, silent, still. I stepped inside. The earth smelled of damp decay. And then, movement. Graves shifting, fresh soil rising as if breathing. Hands erupted from the ground, pale, wet, clawing, faces twisted in silent screams. I stumbled backward. She appeared in the center of the cemetery, the Bell Witch, her eyes glowing, her smile sharp. "You cannot leave," she whispered, "not until you see everything." The dead rose fully, twisting bodies, skeletal hands, decomposed faces. They surrounded me, blocking every path. I tried to fight, swinging that empty air, but her power was in the ground. The dead moved with her will. She stepped closer. The dead parted for her. Her voice, calm and terrifying, echoed through the hollow. "Look at them," she said. "All I have taken, and all I will take from you." The ground shook. Hands reached higher. The dead screamed. And I finally understood. The Bell Witch does not haunt lightly. She collects. She commands. She devours fear itself. That was the 26th night. And I realized I am not alone. I am never alone. She follows everywhere.
The hollow stretched endlessly. Trees twisted into unnatural angles. The fog clung like living hands. Every step I took felt wrong. The ground shifted beneath me. Paths I'd taken vanished. New ones appeared. Whispers followed. Not from behind, not from the air, but inside my head. Turn back. Stay. You cannot leave. I ran. The hollow bent around me. Branches scraped my face. Roots wrapped my ankles. Then I saw her, the Bell Witch, floating above the ground, eyes glowing, smiling. She spoke, and the hollow answered. Everything bends to me, every shadow, every tree, every stone, and now you. Shadows formed into figures, some faces I recognized, the dead, the missing, all twisted in torment. I stumbled, fell. The ground rose, lifting me, twisting me toward her. The hollow itself seemed alive. Her laughter echoed, a sound that split the air. I realized this hollow is not land. It is her will made real. That was the 27th night, and I realized every step I take in Tennessee, every path, every field, every shadow, she controls them all. I finally stood before her, the mist parted, the hollow silent, her eyes deeper than night, her smile wider than fear itself. She raised her hand, the air shimmered, and the world around me warped. Then she removed the shadow from her face, and I saw it. Not a witch, not a woman, but a void. A face that was not a face, a darkness that devoured all light. I screamed, but the sound dissolved into the hollow. My voice was hers now. I am the fear you carry, the silence in your room, the shadow on your wall, the cold hand at midnight. I backed away, and the trees leaned in. The ground rose, even the air pressed against me. I am the Bill Witch, she whispered, and I see everything, including you. The hollow post, the dead rose in the distance. The wind carried screams, and I realized there was no escaping, no running, no hiding. She existed everywhere, in the land, in the air, in the silence. That was the 28th night, and I realized the Bell Witch's true face is not human. It is fear itself, endless, eternal. I reached the edge of the hollow. The land ended, the mist thickened, and the river waited. She stood across the water. Her eyes gleamed like black stars. The air between us pulsed. "This is your choice," she whispered. "Step forward or remain trapped in my world forever." I looked back. The hollow stretched endlessly. Every shadow, every tree, every ghostly hand beckoned. I stepped toward the river. The water rippled with faces, the dead reaching, screaming silently. Her hand stretched out, and I felt her power, cold, crushing, eternal. I closed my eyes and jumped. The river swallowed me, cold, dark, endless. I surfaced, breathing, alive. The mist thinned. The land behind me seemed normal. The Bell Witch was gone, but I knew better. She would always be there, watching, waiting. In every shadow, every sound, every fear. That was the 29th night, and I realized you can leave Tennessee, you can survive the Bell Witch, but she never truly leaves.
The night was quiet. I thought it was over, that I had escaped. But then, a whisper, soft, close, impossible to ignore. You can never forget me. I spun around, no one there, just the trees, the wind, the dark. And yet, I felt her, watching, waiting, every shadow closer than the last. I remembered every night, the river of faces, the hollow church, the fields of shadows, every step she had followed me. And I realized the truth. The Bell Witch does not vanish. She never did. She is fear itself, eternal. I whispered back, not in defiance, not in bravery, but in survival. I see you. I know you. I fear you. But I live. A cold wind passed. The whisper faded. For now. I walked away, and every step I took, I knew the Bell Witch still haunts Tennessee. And one day, she will see me again.